Broadcasting live from the Jersey Shore, it's Coach Kev on the Damage 365 Radio Network.
And welcome back, everybody, to another exciting episode here of the Indie Super Show, brought to you by the Damage 365 Radio Network. What an awesome rendition of Bray Wyatt's theme, Breaking Out of Love. Man, that was unbelievable and made our intro for this show. And we're going to reach out to the owner of that version of that song and see if she'd like to make some more material for us in the near future. But we have a great show lined up today. As always, we are on the Damage 365 Radio Network along with Spotify, iHeart Radio, and many of your other social media and podcast platforms. So we'll be joined momentarily after our commercial break by the former Raw General Manager, the former leader of the NWO, Vice President of WCW, on and on, the accolades on and on and on, to one of the greatest minds in professional wrestling. Yes, we are talking about the boss man, Eric Bischoff. He'll be joining us, talking a little quarantine, coronavirus, what he's been doing to keep himself busy over there in Wyoming, and see how the family's doing. We, of course, consider Mr. Bischoff a close personal friend of the Damage 365 brand, as well as my family. So sit back, relax, listen to our sponsors, and remember to continue to help support your mom and pop shops all over the United States. So when this crazy pandemic is over and done with, they are still there supplying whatever it is that they're selling to us in our towns, especially if you live in a small town like myself. And with all the craziness that's going on in America, we definitely don't want to see any more negatives like companies closing and things like that, and people losing their homes and losing their livelihood because they could not afford to come back from the pandemic. So that's all that I ask you to do. So sit back, relax. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
This is Thunder Rosa, and you're listening to Damage 365 Radio.
The Funkenstein Wrestling Superstore, selling wrestling memorabilia from all around the world, including WWE, Impact, ROH, Japan, Mexico, and the Indies. They sell action figures, lucha masks, t-shirts, trading cards, magazines, DVDs, autographs, collectibles, vintage video games, and more. Stop in and get tickets for local independent wrestling such as UWA Elite, CZW, and Synergy Wrestling. Located indoors at the world-famous English Town Flea Market, Blue Building, booths 45 through 48 at 90 Wilson Avenue in Manalapan Township, New Jersey. Open every Saturday and Sunday from 8 a.m. till 3 p.m. all year round. Visit them on Facebook at facebook.com/FunkensteinINC. New Jersey's largest wrestling store is the Funkenstein Wrestling Superstore. Tell them Damage 365 sent you.
This is the last pure athlete, Jordan Grace, and you're listening to Damage 365 Radio.
Esposito's Pizza and Pasta. Check us out at one of our fine locations, 930 Route 34 in Matawan, New Jersey, or 233 East Main Street in Manasquan, New Jersey. From pizzas and salads to pasta and buffalo wings, we have something to suit every member of your family. Whether you're seeking to take out, delivery, or you just want to dine in, let us do the dishes, as we would be more than happy to take care of your next meal. Our courteous and friendly restaurant staff is here to meet and exceed all of your expectations. We promise an enjoyable experience at every time we serve you. Try our award-winning Sesame Crust Pizza, a recent winner at the Las Vegas Pizza Open. Visit us online at sesamepizza.com for store hours, menus, phone numbers to one of our great locations. Esposito's Pizza and Pasta. So close to eating at Mom's, but without all the yelling.
Hey guys, it's Tennille Dashwood, and you're listening to the Indie Super Show on the Damage 365 Radio Network.
Look at this photograph. Every time I do, it makes me laugh. How did our eyes get so red? And what the hell is on Joey's head?
Hey, wrestling promoters and booking agents, you know where you can get inexpensive prints of your hired talent? Right here at Fast Copy Printing Center, located in the Pearl of the Bay Shore. That's right. Whether you need 8x10s, 11x17s, posters, long format, or even weatherproof signs, we can do it all. We also can create promotional items for your business, such as pens, business cards, drink koozies, banners, or just a coffee mug. Stop on down to Fast Copy Print Center, 81 Broad Street in Keyport, New Jersey, or just call at 732-739-4646. No job is too big and satisfaction is guaranteed. Tell them Damage 365 sent you.
Hey everybody, this is Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, and you are listening to Damage 365 Radio. And remember, everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man.
The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for taking the time to listen to our sponsors. As always, we ask that you help contribute to the mom and pop shops in your towns and neighborhoods, so after this pandemic and crisis is over, they'll still be there to supply us with their great service and friendly smiles. And at this time, someone that we consider near and dear to our heart here at Damage 365 and our family, we welcome back to the family, the boss man, Eric Bischoff. Welcome back.
Hey, Kevin, it's great to be here. And I, too, bring great service and smiles.
I agree. I mean, when we first met back in 2017 in Orlando, Florida, a lot of people were like, Eric is he's grumpy, he's not the easiest guy to work with, blah, blah, blah. I found that to be like 1,000% inaccurate. You were like the most easiest laid back guy to work with. You know, you're a businessman. You have a worth. You know what it is. And you never gave us a hard time. We've worked together, I'd say, since then, probably about 5 more times between New Orleans and New York and a couple other stops while you were in New York, Fort Wayne, Indiana. So, you know, I don't know what those people were talking about, but I have to say that you have always been a pleasure to work with. You're one of the more easiest people to work with. You're as low maintenance as possible.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I do. You know, I don't know where, you know, because when I started working with you was right about the time I first started making appearances.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do a lot of personal appearances for a long time. And then when I started, you were, you know, you may not have been the first, but you were certainly, you know, early on. And I've always, you know, once I get in front of people, you know, when the lights go on and the doors open, you know, at signings and events like that, you know, it's really just all about the people. You've got to make sure that they had a great time, that they felt like they had enough time, you know, with you if they're spending 20, 30, 40, 50, sometimes more dollars, depending on the talent, for an opportunity to have a picture and a photograph. One of the things I learned a long time ago is when people, you know, invest their time and their money for a chance to meet somebody, they don't really care about the autograph. The autograph is just the excuse to engage in a conversation and feel like you get to know somebody a little bit. The autograph is almost like a formality. So I try, when I do personal appearances, to remember that. And when I, you know, shake somebody's hand, I like to look them in the eye. I like to ask them about themselves. I try to ask more questions of them than they do of me, so they get the feeling that, you know, it actually matters to me, because it does.
Right.
I've been on the other side of that equation before. I know how it feels to be a fan of somebody and have a chance to meet them and how exciting it is, and sometimes how nervous people get. So I just take all that into consideration, and I've always done that. I don't know where anybody, you know, and I'm not saying I'm not capable of, you know, getting frustrated or losing my temper, you know, under certain circumstances, but I don't think, with one or two exceptions, that's ever really happened. And usually when I do get angry, I'm more angry at myself than anybody else. But I've never heard that I was tough to work with. I mean, I've heard it subsequently, but I try to be as easy as possible, and I try to be as self-contained as possible. I don't like... First of all, I'll be honest with you, Kevin, and you probably know this. We've worked together enough. I just don't like to have to depend on people to do things for me.
Right.
I don't really want to have to depend on somebody to pick me up from the airport. I'd rather just get a car and go by myself. I don't, you know, I don't want to feel like I have to have people, you know, waiting on me and doing things for me, because it's a burden on them, and it's actually more work for me. It's easier just to do the stuff myself, to be honest.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, I also think that people confuse your on-air persona from all those years with WCW and NWO, and they kind of confuse and blur reality to thinking that's, you know, that's Eric Bischoff sitting at the table. That's the way he is, the same way I remember him on TV. And, you know, I think people unfairly get a reputation because of their on-air persona.
Yeah, I think that's unique to wrestling. You know, if I would have been so fortunate as to have been blessed with better looks and actual, you know, degree of acting ability, and if I was, you know, an actor playing, you know, a bad guy in a movie, and then I went to a Comic-Con, nobody would assume I'm a bad guy in real life, because I know it's a movie. But wrestling's a little weird, man. It's not really a sport, but it kind of is. It's not really a reality show, but it kind of is.
Yep.
It's not really a sitcom, but it kind of is. You know, it's not really a drama, but it kind of is. And a lot of times, because it's kind of like so many different things, the lines between what's real and what's not real are way more blurry in professional wrestling than they are in television and feature films and things like that.
Right.
So it's kind of common, and it's even more complicated by the fact that when I was playing a character in WCW as part of Nitro, my name was Eric Bischoff, and I was playing the part of a guy who owns or controls the company.
Right.
Well, my name is Eric Bischoff, and I was actually the guy that was controlling the company. So Now you're really blurring the line. So I understand why it happens, but it's unfortunate, but I understand it.
I also think a lot of it has to do with jealousy too. I mean, there was a lot of people out there that were bidding to bring you in, and when they see somebody else beat them to the punch, I think some of the jealousy comes out. And instead of congratulating somebody and wishing them luck, it's kind of like, let me shit on it, make me feel better about myself. So I've learned that over the years that happens entirely way too much in this industry, and whatever, it doesn't really bother me because push comes to shove, you've traveled a lot of places with us, and we've had a lot of memories and a lot of fun times, a lot of fun car stories, and even just sitting at the table in some weird towns, just looking at our surroundings and laughing because it's just, you go from New York to say Indiana, and it's like night and day.
Yeah. I remember when you just said, we did a show together in Indiana and Fort Wayne. I remember that. And nothing against the city of Fort Wayne or the people in it, for sure. But I dare say I'm going to be careful how I say it. Let's put it this way. I got in a little bit late. It was late in the evening. I had a tough day of traveling because I was coming from Wyoming, and you can't get anywhere from Wyoming in any reasonable amount of time. So I was beat up pretty bad.
Yeah.
And I was really, really hungry. And the hotel that we were at, the only fast food around was like a Church's Fried Chicken or Carl's Jr. or some fast food thing. And I try not to eat fast food. And the hotel didn't have a bar or a restaurant. But right next door was a strip club. And I decided, I don't normally go to strip clubs anymore. I kind of gave that up about 20 years ago. When you get older, all the dancers start looking like, your kids' friends. It's kind of like, it's too creepy for me. So I don't really do that anymore. The last thing I want to do is see some, 22-year-old girl dancing on a table that's younger than my daughter. So I just don't do it. But I was really thirsty, and I went next door, and let's just say it was one of the most eye-opening experiences I've had. It was like going to the state fair in a small town where everyone was naked. It was pretty bizarre, but I got over it. I still have a little bit of scar tissue. I'm sure if I go to Fort Wayne again, no matter how thirsty I am, I won't be going to a strip club. But that's my memory of Fort Wayne.
And it was funny because I was like our first memory of it too, and that first show that we went to, because we did it twice. That was Easter weekend. That weekend we went with you, and we stayed in the same hotel, and it was like a Solo cup taped to the ceiling, covering a sprinkler cap. I guess it must have been leaking, so they taped the Solo cup to the ceiling, and then we found weed in our nightstand between the beds, so that was interesting. So it was we did find out though the second time we went later in the year that the other side of Fort Wayne is like completely different. Like it's more residential and commercialized, where the other side was strip clubs and lap dances and pancakes and stuff like that. But it was we stayed at an extended stay, and it was actually in the same parking lot as a Cracker Barrel, so that worked out very well.
Here's the fun thing about traveling. I've been blessed, and I mean that in a literal sense of the term. I've been so blessed with an opportunity to go so many places, stay in beautiful hotels, countries all over the world, and red carpet this and red carpet that. And I'm not going to lie, I don't mind that. But I also don't mind just getting a little gritty and kind of going old school. And that's one of the reasons why, too, I like some of the events I've done with you and some of the independent shows I've been to, because it reminds me of why I kind of fell in love with this business in the first place.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's going full circle. And like I said, I don't like when people feel that it's necessary to work extra hard to accommodate me. I feel guilty about it. I'd rather not feel guilty. So while I appreciate when people do a lot of shit, it's completely unnecessary. And every once in a while, I kind of dig staying in a gritty hotel. I don't mind it, because it keeps you honest, keeps you kind of real. You know, when you get to the point in your life where you start expecting 4-star hotels, you start expecting this and expecting that, you've lost your way, you know, and you don't really appreciate it as much because you don't check yourself every once in a while and get a little gritty.
Yep. I mean, we've had some talent that we booked, and they were like, oh, you know, we want to stay in, 4-star or better. I was like, I live in a beach town. I'm like, we don't have 4-star. We don't even have hotels. we have 2-level motels, a whole bunch of them. We have a lot of like cottage inns and stuff like that. I was like, I'm like, I don't know, you know, I'm not gonna put you like, 25 miles away where we're gonna have to leave an hour early to go get you. I was like, so you got to kind of tone down your expectations of where we're going and, what area you're going to be staying in. I mean, some of these, they come fresh off TV and, they want to stay in like the Ritz-Carlton. And I'm like, yeah, I don't, I live in a beach town, bro. We don't got that.
And not only that, these guys that have just come off TV, WWE or anybody else didn't put them up in a Ritz-Carlton.
No.
They paid their own hotel expenses and they stayed at a Days Inn.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's what makes me laugh because, they had that show on the network, the Ride Along show, and you would see them going in and out of the hotels, and you know that wasn't the Hilton. You can see the carpet when they walk in the door. That's not the Hilton logo.
And the other thing I think people learn, especially when I'll just tell you what I learned too. I won't speak for other people, but one of the things I learned, when I first started doing these events, like the ones I've done with you, is and as you said, I have a perception of what my value is.
Mm-hmm.
I try to keep it reasonable because if you don't, as a promoter and a guy booking me and taking the risk, if you don't make money and good money, then I'm not going to get booked again.
Right.
So or if I demand, now the only thing I am a little bit of a diva about is airfare because I just cannot stand flying coach anymore. I'd rather take less money as a fee and fly first class than to fly coach and make more money. I can't stand flying coach, and that's just the diva in me, or maybe it's not a diva. Maybe I'm just getting too old to sit in those little tiny seats. But but I think talent, guys like me and others who go to these shows and depend on people like you need to keep in mind is, you just like we experienced on, I think, the last show that we did. It might have been for a week.
Mm-hmm.
If the crowd isn't there for whatever reason, maybe the weather turned really shitty, or there's a tornado warning, or maybe the guy that was actually promoting the event didn't do his or her job. If there's not a crowd there, and if Kevin Nassar doesn't make money, there's a good chance I'm not coming back if I price myself out of the market.
Right.
And I think if you're a talent and you want to make your money going to these events where people like you promote and take all the risk, really, keep in mind, and this is advice to anybody that would happen to hear this, that's kind of on that circuit or wants to be. Keep in mind, if the guy that's booking you isn't making money, you won't be either. That's why I like working with you and your wife, is because we work together multiple times, over a couple of years. You and I would work together probably twice a year on average.
Yeah.
Well, I'd rather work together 2 or 3 or 4 times a year, making sure that you make money, than go in one time, have you roll the dice, I get a big payday, you lose your ass, and that's the end of it.
Right.
We'll never do business again. Not because we don't like each other or anything like that, but because the money isn't there. And sometimes talent doesn't realize that, there's a lot of people there, but first of all, those people that come to these events, a lot of them don't have thousands of dollars with nothing else to do in their back pocket. They're scrimping and saving and, robbing Peter to pay Paul, and maybe skipping a car payment sometimes, to come and spend $30 and $40 and $50 an autograph. You got to keep you aware. Just keep that shit in mind and get off that big tall white horse and get down on the ground and keep your head level.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them, I think, over the years, kind of gotten humbled the hard way. Where you brought them in and they didn't have the line at the table that they were expecting, and I think a lot of times that. Not that it insults them or anything, but it kind of humbles them to say, hey, you know what, maybe, maybe my expectations were a tad bit too high, and and then they don't get booked again. That exactly what you were saying, and sometimes that's happened. Look, it's happened to all of us. It's happened to me. The first time I ever brought in Cameron, she was fresh off TV. I brought her to a couple of shows that weekend. We did well at the convention, and we kind of bombed out at all the littler shows. And she really didn't get booked after that by anybody. And I don't know if it was a humbling experience to her, or maybe she just wasn't really into the whole wrestling scene that much to begin with. But we just recently did, and this is 5 years later. We just recently did some work together this past November and then January in Los Angeles, and it was a totally different script. The customers were all lining up to see her. She was, all smiles and just a totally different person whatsoever. And, I just don't think she was ready for it, or didn't know what to expect the first time around. And I think it turned a lot of people off. And then you combine that with the fact that she wasn't doing anything for years. Sometimes they say, when you're not around, and then when somebody finally brings you in, you get that draw. But if you're there all the time, every single show, you dilute the market with yourself, and you're not really worth anything anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. It works in wrestling too. You can overexpose yourself so much, and I often worry about that even with my podcast and all the social media stuff I do and interviews I do and things like that. It's like, well, God, people are eventually going to get sick of hearing me talk about shit. But I've found that as long as you're keeping it real, like we're having a conversation right now that really doesn't have anything to do with wrestling, per se. We're talking about the wrestling industry, and it's a portion of it.
Yep.
But, people want to get to know you, and that's one of the great things about these autograph signings that you promote and others promote, is if the talent's of the right mind. And there's a lot of guys. I don't want to sound like, no, there's not. And ironically, Scott Hall, the last, 8 or 10 times that I've been at events with Scott is one of the people that I notice really goes an extra mile to make people feel good and look them in the eye and actually have a conversation with them, not to say the same thing to different people all day long. Now, Scott's had his issues. We all know about that, but I think he's handled them really well. And I watch others, in the ones that have fun with the people, even if they don't have a big line, people walk away talking about them. And those people go home, even if you've already sent 25 autographs in an entire day. But if you have fun with each and every one of those people, they go on social media and they talk about it, they tell their friends, and you might not come back for a year or two, but when you come back, you're coming back, with some goodwill.
Yeah.
As opposed to sitting there and scowling and being angry and treating people like shit because you're in a bad mood. That's a surefire way to not only does it suck to just be in that frame of mind all day long.
Yeah.
It's just like self-inflicted frickin' misery. But, when you walk away from that, people can tell. They can look across a building. They can look across an arena and see if you're sitting there scowling. They don't want to come over and meet you. Yeah, fuck it.
Yep.
And you know what else is the other thing I found? I also found, and I don't want to say I like it when it's slow, because I don't, for all the right reasons that we just discussed. But I found that when things are really slow and you don't have 50 or 75 or even 30 or 35 people lined up because everybody wants to get on, they want to get their couple minutes with you and then they want to get on to the next autograph, right?
Yeah.
There's a tendency to kind of rush people through, and I don't like that. I can look at certain people in line, and at least I think I can. Maybe I'm kidding myself, but it works for me. I can pick certain people out of a line, and I can almost tell the ones that really, really, I don't want to say need, but would really appreciate a real conversation. And, and it's easy to figure out. They're shy. You can tell they're almost uncomfortable because they're nervous. And all you have to do is look those people in the eye and talk to them like they're your neighbor, or like you already know them, and just have a real conversation with them. And you watch the transition in those people, it really makes you feel good. I've walked away crying, just watching certain people react to someone that they've seen on television actually paying real attention to them, as opposed to signing an autograph, taking a picture. And sometimes when it's slow, you get that opportunity, and I don't mind that either.
Yeah. Well, we were when we were in Orlando, we had a pretty good flow of people, and you still took the time to talk and engage with everybody. And I even remember you going as far as having a video chat with someone's father because they were a big fan of you, and you told them like, "Oh, call your father," and they're like, "What?" Like, call your father, and you were like talking to the guy's father, like, "Hey, how's it going?" Blah blah, like that. And those people actually messaged me weeks later on social media thanking me for for that, and I was like, "Don't thank me." I was like, "Thank Eric." I'm like, I obviously, I brought you there, but he's the one that went that extra mile to engage with not only you, but acknowledge that your father was a big fan and your father couldn't be there. So it was stuff like that was great because like it was talked about a lot, and that's where I kind of felt like later on I think people started realizing that that fake reputation that you had as being grumpy, I think that got thrown out the window after Orlando.
Well, I was hungover as hell.
Well, rightfully so. I mean, you had a rough night inducting DDP into the Hall of Fame the night before.
I was dragging. My son was there because he lives in Florida. He was over near Tampa, so he came over, and I was, of course, hanging with my son. And there was a bunch of guys there from TS. Samoa Joe was there, Frankie, and there was a lot of guys there. Frankie Kazarian, and there's just a lot of people there that not only did I know, but my son knew from his time at TNA. So that just kind of turned up the volume on the alcohol consumption. But it was still fun. Anyway, I have a blast with them. I'm really anxious for this to get over with because I've gotten to the point now where I actually miss doing these shows. At first, I did them because I wanted to test the waters and see what it was like, and the money was important at the time too. I don't want to pretend it wasn't. But I was tentative about it. But now it's like, here's another thing, Kevin. Here's another little. I haven't shared this with too many people, probably other than my wife. But when I first started doing these shows, it was a little depressing for me on a personal level because I'm human. I get my own flaws and weaknesses and insecurities and all the same shit everybody else has. And I'm going to these events, and these people kept coming up to me with pictures they wanted me to sign. Well, all of the pictures were like from 1992 and 1994 or 5. And I get lucky to have some NWO stuff in there from 1997. Well, shit, that was still 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at pictures of myself all day long when I was like 30 pounds lighter, and I had black hair, and I looked like my little cousin. It was kind of depressing for a while. Mighty, I told my wife when I came home, I said, God, if I have to sign one more autograph for myself when I was 175 pounds and had jet black hair, wearing a cool leather jacket, I'm going to throw myself in front of a freaking truck. But I really got over it, and I'm cool with it now.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody kind of goes through that period for a bit when they start getting older. And I mean, you see guys like Greg Valentine at pretty much every show, and he's signing pictures that are probably like 40 years old. So I think everybody goes through that adjustment period of being like, you're still the same guy, but you're there because of what you represented years ago.
And that's it too. I think as talent, I remind myself that they're only spending their money and taking their time because I represent a period in their life.
Right.
Maybe they were 15 years old and first time they really got into wrestling. Well, that leaves a strong impression on people. They're not coming to meet me because of what I'm doing now. They're coming to meet me because of what I did back then. And it's just one of the kind of things I had to realize to allow me to go, oh, okay. And now when people bring me that stuff, I have fun with it. I make fun of myself. I laugh at the pictures. I make fun of, who is this guy? Who is this punk? I'll kick his ass. I just have fun with it. Whereas, the first couple I did, it was like, oh my God, I would drink a half a bottle of whiskey on the plane on the way home, and it was horrible.
Oh man. Whew.
But it's all good. I can't wait to get back.
But I got to say, you definitely were a trooper in Orlando because, like you said, you had a rough night. You were there early. I remember you calling me and like, hey, I'm in the hotel. Where's the table? And I was like, I was like explaining to you where. He was like, well, come find me. I'm sitting at Mean Gene's table, and he's not here. So.
I think that's another thing. I have this. I don't know if it's a weakness or a strength, but I hate being late. I just hate it.
Yeah.
I think it's the most insulting thing you can do to somebody. If I've got an appointment with you, whether it's a business appointment or social appointment, whatever it is, and I say, okay, Kevin, I'm going to meet you at the Italian restaurant at 6 o'clock. And if I don't show up to 6:30 and I haven't given you a call and explained exactly why, that's really disrespectful. Things happen.
Yep.
I mean, even on this interview, I got a call 2 minutes before we were supposed to start that I absolutely had to take. I couldn't put it off.
Right.
But I let you know right away. You see, no problem. 20 minutes later, we're on the phone. That's respect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Showing up a half hour late just because you're late, because you're lazy, your alarm didn't go off. You don't want to eat that extra, waffle at the Waffle House, whatever the hell. That's really respectful. So I tend to always show up about 15 or 20 minutes before I'm supposed to be somewhere, especially if I don't know where I'm going. Sometimes you just get lost. I don't want to show up late because I got lost. That's even worse.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little confusing because if I remember correctly, the Uber driver dropped you off at the front of the hotel, and the convention hall was in the back of the hotel, which we didn't know because they didn't really give us specifics. I just knew we were parked on the grass in the back lot, and they allowed us in the side door. But I think we were supposed to go through the front. I don't really know what the specifics were, and I remember you coming in and just.
Go ahead, bud.
No, I just remember you calling me and you were like, I'm at Mean Gene's table. Can you come find me? I just remember that.
Well, not only was I hungover, which was the major factor in my discomfort, but I had also, because of where I got dropped off, and it seemed like 4.5 or 5 miles. It probably wasn't. It was probably a half mile, but when you're as hungover as I was, it felt like 5 miles. And to make it worse, I had cowboy boots.
No.
And I wear them once in a while. I don't wear them all the time. And when you don't wear cowboy boots all the time, and then all of a sudden you've got to hike up concrete, for a half a mile or a mile or whatever it was.
Yeah, because they dropped you off at the wrong hotel.
Yeah. By the time I got to Gene's table, I was sweating profusely and exhausted, and my feet were screaming at me.
I just remember we went and got you. We did our pleasantries and brought you over, and I was like, all right, this is where you're going to sit. I was like, do you need anything? And you were like, water. Just keep it coming.
Pedialyte if you have any handy.
I was just like, all right. And then I remember there was I don't remember if it was a wrestler or somebody that was coming around and they had those like coffee flavored energy drinks that they were giving out, like samples. And I remember you taking a sip of it and your face was priceless and you handed it right to me and I was like, yep, he don't want it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, normally I would snort a cup of coffee if I have to, but or if things are really bad, I would just grind the beans and snort them. If I was that hungover, and I needed to get it into my system right away. But yeah, that coffee shot was nasty.
Yeah, I remember when we all packed up and left. There was just like cans of it all lined up against the wall that I guess they were handing out and nobody wanted, so they were just leaving them on the floor. They were just lined up on the wall. But yeah, I mean, it was a very cool weekend. It was our first time ever doing WrestleCon, and it was also the first time we ever left the Northeast area to do a signing. And I have to thank Bruce Pritchard for that because he's actually the one that got me in touch with you originally. Because him and I did some work earlier that year in New York, and he reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, would you ever want to do anything with Eric Bischoff?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And he's the one that actually set all that up, between you and I.
Yeah, Bruce is a good dude. I just talked to him a couple days ago. I try not to bug him too much, I'm not a good phone guy anyway. My brother and sister, who I love dearly, I maybe talk to them on the phone twice a year. You know, now, I'll swing by and see them. You know, I'll drive out to Minnesota and spend a week with them just on a whim, and they come out to visit us here in Wyoming. So we spend time together. But I don't like, you know, I'm not a phone guy.
Yeah.
And it's you know, Bruce is so busy, and I know how much pressure he's under, that I feel almost guilty if I call him, because I don't want him to feel obligated to have to. I know what it's like to lay it down on your couch and you finally get 20 minutes of free time.
Mm-hmm.
You've been sick of hearing your own voice for the last 14 hours of the day, and then somebody calls you. Chat. It's like, oh, my God. I think I'll just pretend my phone's dead.
I reach out to him a couple times a year, annually on his birthday, usually around midnight. I'll text him, and I'll usually see the time I wake up the next morning that he got it and replied back. I think I did that with you as well. I texted you from the future because of the time zone.
Right. Technically, the first birthday wish I got.
I always try. Everybody always like, oh, you're always the first one. I'm like, because I'm the lunatic that's up in the middle of the night. That's why.
The prognosis for the independent kind of Comic-Con, WrestleCon type of events that you do, is it, have they burned themselves out? Do you think COVID is going to actually help make them come back, because it's been a while now since anybody's done one? What's your gut tell you?
Well, I'm still skeptical if we're going to get any in the New York, New Jersey area before this end of this year. I mean, we're supposed to do a signing in Connecticut in September called the Wrestling Classic. And then big event was the second weekend in November. And then you and I were talking about doing the Winston-Salem WrestleCade in North Carolina Thanksgiving weekend. But who knows? I mean, right now, WrestleCade hasn't announced if they're a go yet. Big event is going on as scheduled, just assuming that we're going to be able to. Connecticut is opened, but my signing, do something there, all depends on if I can do anything in New York and New Jersey, because my talent is not only just going to do that one event on Saturday. They were supposed to do 2 store signings over the weekend in New York and New Jersey. So if I can't do that, I'm not going to do anything, because it doesn't, it all comes together as one package. So I really don't know. I mean, if everything kind of gets canned for the rest of the year, I guess it could help the demand for it in 2021, because people are going to be fiending for it. They're going to want it. People have been doing, including myself, have been doing a lot of live sales and auctions on Facebook, things like that, selling, overflow of merchandise that we've had over the years. That's gone very, very well. But, that's going to end soon too, because if everything's lifted and people are going to want to leave their house and, venture out and spend their money outside instead of sitting in front of their computer doing it. So it's going to be rough. The New York, New Jersey market, I think, is diluted already, just even without a pandemic. And there's, just within 50 miles of where I live, there's probably 8 shows a year. And that's a lot. That's entirely too much. And that's why I kind of venture out to other states like North Carolina and Indiana and Georgia. And we did Los Angeles, California in January. So, but that's me. Not everybody does that. I like to see other places. But, I really don't know. I mean, New York and New Jersey right now is on phase 1 of, lifting. I mean, they have to get to phase 3 before anything is allowed to have more than 50 people. So I have no idea if it's going to happen before the end of the year.
Yeah, I think it's, I'm a pretty avid consumer of news. I'm a junkie, and I read a lot, and I read as many diverse opinions and positions as I possibly can to kind of get a better view of things. Otherwise, you kind of live in an echo chamber. But based on everything that I've read and hear, I can't imagine that anybody's going to feel comfortable enough to allow people to congregate in significant enough sizes that it's going to make it possible. Because even if somebody said, okay, WrestleCade's coming up November, normally the building has a capacity of 3,000 people, we're going to let in 1,000.
Right.
Well, who can make money with that?
Right.
That's like a bad rainy day with tornado warnings normally. That's what happens to you when you have a bad show. You have 30% turnout, 35 or 40% turnout, and everybody goes home disappointed. Well, now the very best you could do is 30% or 40% occupancy. I don't know how these restaurants, that all of a sudden with this COVID thing, everybody's coming out saying, okay, we know you used to be able to have 150 people in your restaurant, but now because of social distancing, you can only have 60 people. Well, how do you make money with 60 people with that kind of capacity? Are you going to raise the prices 4 times higher?
Yeah.
You still have this food cost. Your rent stays the same. Your insurance stays the same. So many things stay the same, but you cut your revenue by 30, 40, 50, 60%. Nobody can do it.
It also cuts down on your customer service as well, because your servers in these restaurants now are going to be so concentrated on getting you in and out as quick as possible that they're not going to go that extra mile to engage with the customer and show great customer service, because they're going to say, you know what, I want you out. I need that next person in to make my money.
Yeah, it's kind of like glorified curb service.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I never thought of that. I never thought about that. But from a restaurant owner's perspective, you've got to turn those. You always have to turn tables.
Right.
You've got a 6 or 8 hour window where you make your money, so you've got to get as many people in and out of there as you can and make as much as you can. But if you can only have, if you're at 40% capacity, you really have to turn tables down.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I always said that if you ever go to like a Chinese restaurant, like a sit down service, I always feel like they're the best at it. Like they'll literally have you in, seated, order taken, served, and cleaned up in like 30 minutes.
Yeah, and then if you go to an all-you-can-eat place,
yeah,
they want you to go through the buffet one time, put as much on your plate as you can, but they don't want to see you go back.
Yeah.
Not, it's like, oh, you eat go now, you eat too much. And I took that.
No, it was absolutely. It was like a comedy skit about that. Like, you too fat. You go home. Eat a salad.
As they're screaming at you, pushing you out the door.
No, I mean it's true. It's true though. I mean, even back in my my much larger days, I'd spend like an hour and a half at the buffet because I'd spend a good hour just eating crab legs and shrimp.
Well, at least you eat the good stuff.
Yeah, no, I don't. You know what? To be honest with you, I don't eat much. Even back then, I really didn't eat much Chinese food or anything like that because of the salt content. And I just used to eat a lot of crab leg and shrimp, and maybe we grabbed like some chicken and broccoli or something like that. But I was more there for this crab leg, shrimp, and the almond cookies.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I used to love Chinese food as a kid. Where we grew up in Detroit, there were a lot of Chinese restaurants, and it was really good. And even later on in my teens and early 20s, I was always able to find really good Chinese restaurants where you didn't get MSG to death and there wasn't so much salt in the food.
Yeah.
Man, I can't find them anymore. I know they exist. I'm sure they do, but I have a hard time finding them.
Yeah, I'm very picky about it myself. I mean, I grew up in New York City, so I was always kind of spoiled with the pizza and the bread and the bagels and the Chinese food and the Italian food and things like that. And then I moved to Jersey. It's a little bit different, but it took me years and years to find places that I trusted and I liked and I felt comfortable and comparisonly speaking to what I used to eat was good. And now I barely eat. My portion sizes are tiny, and I don't really. If I get Chinese food, I can literally eat it for 3 days to one meal because it takes me that long to eat it. But I haven't had Chinese food since January because some of them aren't open. I've been doing a lot of cooking at home because of the pandemic, so we're not really ordering out. We're not, doing curbside unless we want pizza. So it's now I'm starting to crave it. Now I'm like, you know what? I kind of want Chinese food, but my wife doesn't really eat it. So it's like the only time we ever really get to eat it is if it's like sit down service where she can get like just beef and noodles. She likes hibachi, not so much Chinese food. So she'll like her like beef and noodles, but you can't really get that with takeout because they slap all the sauce all over it, and it's just a mess. So I haven't had it now for months. So I'm kind of craving it. But I know as soon as the pandemic or whatever is lifted and we're all able to go somewhere and sit down, I'll probably forget, and I probably won't eat Chinese food until like March of next year, not even realizing it.
Well, you should have seen when I got hired by WWE, because my wife and I live in a small little town, like 9,000 people. This is a very small town, and even those 9,000 people are spread out over a massive area.
Yeah.
And the city of Cody, where we live, they've got 3 or 4 decent restaurants, and when I say decent, meaning 5 on a scale of 1 to 10.
Okay.
There may be 1 or 2 in town that'll break a 5, and maybe a 6 on a scale of 10. But it's all the same kind of food. It's all steak and it's typical Western type food. And we moved to Connecticut last July, and we lived right downtown in Stamford. In fact, I lived a block away from Vince McMahon's building. Actually, I lived right down the street from him. It was really weird watching him come and go. And I said, "Oh fuck, he's going to the office. I better beat him there." That's the fat chance, by the way. If you've ever seen him drive, forget about it. But we were surrounded by amazing restaurants. Now, not as good as New York City, not as good as what you grew up with.
Yeah.
But when you come from a place like Cody, Wyoming, to Stamford, Connecticut, and you could hit a great restaurant. You could hit a great Indian restaurant, a great Italian restaurant, a great sushi bar. There was a sushi bar a block and not even a block and a half, maybe a block from our house. I could walk to it in the rain; it'd be all right. There was great steak houses there, oysters, seafood, tapas. We showed up around July 16th of last year. By the time they let me go, which was in October, I had gained 30 pounds.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, because, when I had time on the weekends when I wasn't working, it's like, okay, let's go out to eat. I never cooked a thing the time we lived there. I think my wife may have cooked once or twice. It was all, let's go out and eat. It was good food. There was an Italian restaurant right down the street from us that was just godly good. Godly good. Linguine and clam sauce that made me cry like a baby. It was so good. Lasagna that I would have, if I had to, I would have used a weapon to get it from somebody if it was necessary. It was that good.
All right. Well, since we've got onto that topic of that area, what the hell went on? Like, what happened that I was so happy when you told me WWE's bringing you back. You actually had to cancel a meet and greet with me for WrestleCade in North Carolina because you had your obligations with WWE. With SmackDown moving to a different day, you guys were working on that Fox deal. Like, everything was in motion, and then poof, you were gone, and I was like, what the hell? What happened?
That's the same thing I was asking myself as I was heading out the door. Not to make light of it, but look, looking back now, it's easy to look backwards and kind of analyze the process of it all, from beginning to end. And I have. And I think a couple things happened. And it started off, from the very beginning. When Bruce called me and said, hey, how do you feel about me mentioning your name about, taking this position? I love Bruce. He's one of my best friends. I said, well, of course, Bruce. I'd be excited about that because the idea of working together with Bruce and even Paul Heyman was really exciting to me because I never really worked on a creative level with Paul before. Bruce and I had worked together before in CNA.
Right.
But I never really worked, and I had worked with Bruce in WWE when I was a talent, and he was my producer. So Bruce, I was already really familiar with, and because I was familiar with him, I was really excited to work with Bruce. And I think Paul was an opportunity that I was really looking forward to because, you know, despite some of the back and forth stuff that we've done over the decades, you know, in social media and such, I have a lot of respect for Paul. And I wanted to see what could possibly come out of, because we have a divergent kind of approach to things in some respects, but in many respects we think a lot alike in terms of story and character and things like that. So I was looking forward to it, and rather than really analyzing the opportunity, I didn't allow myself to analyze it the way I should have because I was so excited about it. I just went, oh yeah, fuck it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to jump in with both feet, I'm going to do it. What I should have done, really in retrospect, is have a much clearer picture of WWE's expectations, number one, and how to measure myself against those expectations. But where I think I really made a mistake from the very beginning, there were two of them. One of them is I overestimated my ability to adapt. I've always, throughout my career, throughout my life, I've always been able to pretty easily adapt to almost any situation I was in.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's talking to, you know, in a meeting, talking with Ted Turner, or, you know, almost coming to blows with talent in a bar, arguing over a finish. I'm equally comfortable in just about every environment. What I didn't really know about myself as much as I could have or should have is that I've been self-employed for over 20 years. I'm a one-man band. I'm responsible to me, my family, and my banker, you know, and the federal government, you know, every April 15th. Beyond that, I'm kind of you know, flying solo.
Right.
And I've gotten so used to that I overestimated my ability to adapt. I underestimated just how intense and complex the WWE process and environment is. It's like, you know, yeah, I worked for Turner Broadcasting. I was a president of WCW. Yes, I've worked in a corporate environment, but the corporate environment that I worked in 25 years ago is nothing like the corporate environment that exists today across the board. It's certainly nothing like the corporate environment that exists in WWE. And I overestimated my abilities and underestimated just how big of a monster and a machine WWE really is.
Mm-hmm.
So between the overestimation and the underestimation, there was a big gap. And it was, you know, I really, really got to know some very cool people, very talented people that I had a chance to work with on the SmackDown writing team, who I can't wait to see again someday, you know, hopefully soon. I have nothing but respect for Vince and for the entire team, you know, even those that I don't know, because I understand what a massive machine WWE has become. But it was a wrong fit. You know, I just wasn't the right guy for that job at that time. And, you know, there's been, you know, idiots that think they know and they think they heard and they write the shit that they write. I think it was just, it was a square peg in a round hole. It wasn't because of lack of intent or desire on my part. It certainly wasn't because Vince wanted to make a big deal out of hiring me, take out a press release, talk to people about it, you know, on a market calls and things like that, only to turn around and have to let me go in 4 months. He was as disappointed as I was.
Right.
But sometimes you've got to make those decisions, and it was just a wrong fit.
Well, the thing that, you know, where I said I was like extremely happy and excited, I was shocked that you even took the position, because we were literally talking in April in Indiana at the table where customers would come up to the table and were asking you, would you ever, you know, go back? Would you ever work for, you know, WWE or Impact or anything else? And you were like adamantly answering that, nah, I think I'm done. You know, I'm a little outdated. I don't really know the product that much now. And you were consistent, you know, like what you were saying. And then when, you know, it was announced that you were going back, I was like, huh? I'm like, what changed that?
You know, I told everyone in my first couple of meetings, you know, I let Bruce know, I'm not watching the product. I mean, I haven't. And I say that. I drop in. If I hear about something, if there's a match promoted that's involving somebody that I really enjoy watching. For example, I'm a huge Randy Orton fan. I just am. To me, he's poetry and mo.
Nope.
He's almost flawless. I love him as a character, and I dig him as a guy. He's just a cool dude. So if Randy's got something cool coming up, I'll watch it. I'm Dolph Ziggler. I'll go out of my way to watch. And there's others. I won't go down the list of names, but there's several others. But I don't sit down and watch 3 hours of wrestling on Monday nights. I don't sit down and watch 2 hours of wrestling on Friday nights. I just don't. And it's not because I don't. It's just because my taste has changed. I'm what you would consider to be, I guess, a lapsed fan.
Yeah.
The other thing, Kevin, is when I watch wrestling now, and this has been true for a long, long time, many, 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 many years, I don't watch it for passive enjoyment anymore. Like the way when I watch, my favorite TV show right now is a show called Eve. Killing Eve is the name of the show. Fantastic show. The writing, the acting, the cinematography or filmography is just so cutting edge that I absolutely love watching that show. And I watch that show for passive enjoyment at the end of the day or early evening.
Right.
But when I watch wrestling, I'm watching it from a producer's perspective. I'm no longer watching it for passive pleasure and enjoyment. I'm watching it and I'm breaking it down. Well, why did they take that camera shot? Well, why did that announcer say this? Why didn't they say that? Why don't they give that talent more time to get this point over? Who scripted that promo? I'm constantly analyzing this stuff in my head, and I realize, well, that's what I used to do for a living.
Right.
That was work back then, and I got paid for it. Nobody's paying for it from now.
Right.
I'm not going to do that anymore.
You just frustrate yourself.
But, what's not even frustrating, I just realized I don't really enjoy it as a fan anymore. I'm watching it as a producer. And I let everybody know that, and I think everybody understood that. I don't think anybody, sat and asked them, says, gee, I don't know if we should hire Eric Bischoff because he might not be watching Raw every Monday night or SmackDown every Tuesday night. And I was honest about it. And it doesn't take long to get kind of up to speed on storylines and what the current characters are currently doing. But it does, for me at least, it does take a long time for me to really get a feel for people and what they're capable of, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, how to write or create situations for them to look the absolute best in and keep them away from situations or promos in most cases that actually kind of hurts them.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not going to advance the character or the story with a match or an interview or a vignette, then don't do it. It's better not to do it than it is to do it half-assed because that actually hurts the talent.
Right.
And it's a long time, for me at least, to kind of ascertain individuals' abilities in those areas. But, whatever. It didn't work out. I was shocked. I wanted it to work. I was excited. I was going to leave Cody, Wyoming, and jump in a pickup truck with a 4x8 U-Haul trailer with my wife and my dog and just head out to Connecticut. So I wouldn't have done that if I wasn't excited. But the bloom fell off the rose fairly quickly.
Yeah, and of course, then you read the bullshit that followed with the dirt sheets and all that nonsense from WWE uses Eric Bischoff to get the Fox deal, then lets him go. To now this heat between you and Bruce Pritchard. Then it's going to affect his co-host. What was his co-host's name again? What was it?
You're talking about Conrad Thompson?
Yeah. Conrad. Yeah, and they, people were like, oh, now this heat. And then it was just like the nonsense that was just going on. And, Bruce kind of put a lot of that to sleep on Twitter. And he was just like, enough's enough. Like, people need to stop their shit. And then it was an interesting post that came out with Tony Schiavone. And he, who was with AEW. And he said that he would, if WWE ever called him for a Hall of Fame bid, he said flat out, he would tell them no because of the way that he felt they mistreated you.
Yeah, and Tony's a good friend and a very principled guy. What Tony doesn't know, and I haven't talked to Tony about this, I'm sure I will at some point, but when the day came when they actually pulled me in my office with the HR guy, or HR person, I should say, not a guy, a person, I can't name names because it's just not appropriate. But
right.
the individual that had to tell me that the decision had been made to let me go, he very cool dude, love him to death. Known him for a long time. He was so upset. I don't want to say upset that he had to let me go. Well, he was upset that he had to let me go. He didn't want to give me the news. We had a great relationship.
Right.
And I said, blank, it's good. It's all good. It needed to happen. It wasn't the right fit. I was actually slightly relieved. I was not slightly. That's not even fair. I was relieved. Because it had been building and building and building. I wasn't necessarily happy either. I wasn't walking around in a state of, euphoric bliss, patting myself on the back saying what a great job I did. I knew things were not working out.
Right.
I would have assumed that we had a little bit more time to try to figure out how to make it work out. But by the time, I got sat down with HR and this other individual, I had to console him. It's like, Father, it's going to take me 10 minutes to get to my apartment from this office, and 20 minutes after that, I'm going to be having tapas and a beer and talking to a couple friends. I'm good. Don't stress. I would say the same thing to Tony. They made a decision, and one of the things I respect about Vince McMahon is once he makes a decision, he commits to it. And
right.
He pulls the trigger. He doesn't vacillate. He doesn't take a vote. He doesn't create a committee to create a committee to create a committee to study the committee that's going to make a recommendation to make a decision. He does what his instincts tell him needs to be done, and that's exactly what happened. And I think he made the right decision, and that's what I would tell Tony. It wasn't a matter of treating me badly. It was going back to what I said. It was largely my responsibility to have done a better job being honest with myself as to whether at this time in my life, it's not a matter of whether I'm capable or not from a creative point of view or even a management point of view. The question is whether or not I was able to commit to the process and the culture. And I didn't do a very good job of analyzing that. Okay. But it wasn't, I would tell Tony, brother, if they offer you the spot, take it.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've worked with Tony before, and Tony is a very loyal, a brand loyal guy. If he worked for a company, he's very loyal to that brand, and and he was very loyal to you. So, like, I understand him saying something like that, where he was upset. I think he was kind of insulted for you, but looking back at the whole topic of Hall of Fame. The NWO is announced for their induction into the WWE Hall of Fame. You're not included in that. How did that make you feel? Because I know that pissed off a lot of fans.
I know it did, because my social media feeds they exploded with that. And this would be hard for people to understand because they don't know me well enough to understand why I feel the way I feel. But for me, when they announced that the NWO was going to the Hall of Fame, mm-hmm. that was the biggest win for me. That's the biggest smile I could have on my face, because that acknowledgement of something that is so obvious and probably should have been done years ago. Mm-hmm. It wasn't an easy choice, right? Now, there's the business side of it. Look, WWE owns the NWO trademarks, and it's still a very popular item in their catalog, so they're making money off of it.
Right.
And I get that too. But yeah, it was such a cool thing, and number one, so that made me feel, because that was my thing. That was my baby. And for them to put that baby on a pedestal, whether I happen to be in the whether I happen to be in the room or not, still made me feel really, really good. And Hulk is obviously one of my best friends. Scott, Kevin, I'm still very close to, as well as X-Pac.
Right.
Sean Waltman. So I was happy for them. So between being happy about the NWO getting the acknowledgement it deserves, I think is one of the most pivotal points in the history of wrestling over the last 30 years, really, creatively speaking, at least. And seeing my buddies getting, the attention that they were getting, me being involved in it became kind of a secondary, if not even third, kind of consideration. And I went, that would have been nice, but cool. I'm happy for them. I really didn't. It didn't bother me. I noticed it. I thought it was a little bit unusual, but I also thought, under the circumstances, maybe it just feels too weird. Fire me in October and bring me back in April. Put me in the Hall of Fame. Might be just kind of weird. So I was cool with it. I believe me, I wasn't the slightest bit upset. I was, more than anything, I was kind of supportive of everybody else.
Okay, no, absolutely. And, you got possibly some SummerSlam coming soon. Who knows if they're going to have fans in the stands yet, but that's when they claim that they're going to push back the Hall of Fame induction ceremonies and things like that. Who do you think is going to induct them?
I would lay huge dollars on either Triple H or Shawn Michaels, because that's how things go.
See, to me that would be ridiculous. It's like I don't know. Maybe I'm a little biased, but to me that's a little. Shawn Michaels literally had nothing to do with the NWO, unless you count the silliness and what WWE did with it later in years. And Triple H literally had nothing to do with it. Literally the NWO was his enemy for years because they were competing against you guys. I don't know.
But and I know how you feel, Ted. I know how you feel. And on one level, I absolutely agree with you. But on another level, with regard to Triple H, at least, Triple H he's no longer a wrestling talent. He is, at least from the outside looking in, kind of the heir apparent to Vince McMahon in terms of being the wrestling face of the company, like Vince has been. And I don't know Triple H really all that well. I really haven't spent almost any time with him, getting to know him on a personal level. But he's a smart guy, I do know that. And look, the NWO was the catalyst for DX. If there had never been an NWO, there would have never been a DX.
Right.
And if you're mature and professional, which I believe Triple H is, I think his induction speech, if he's the one, I think there's a potential there for it to be great. Because he could talk about the fact that this was a moment. Let's talk about why are we inducting the NWO in the Hall of Fame? Because it was a pivotal moment in wrestling history that had a profound impact on the industry, not just financially, but just in a lot of ways. And Triple H was on the receiving end of that, before DX and before Attitude Era. They were getting their asses kicked by it. And I think that qualifies him and gives him, a lot of meat on the bone to have a great induction speech. So if he comes out there, in character and diminishes it or makes light of it or whatever, that'll be disappointing. But I don't think that would happen. I think he's a pretty great dude, and he knows his audience. He knows how the audience feels about the NWO. All he's got to do is look at how much NWO merchandise gets sold every month, and that'll tell you how his audience feels about it. And I think he would be respectful of that.
Or still selling.
Yeah.
Right? Still selling in Japan, still selling here. So.
Yeah, I heard recently, I was over in Japan about a year ago, and while I was there for an event that was a memorial to Masa Saida, who's a dear friend, and not just to me, but my entire family. And while I was over there, I did interviews with some of the major Japanese newspapers, and all they wanted to talk about was NW this and NW that. They were telling me things about the amount of revenue that was generated with NWO merchandise, and the amount of revenue that was generated by New Japan with the NWO storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And I had one guy tell me, through an interpreter, obviously, that the NWO storyline and the merchandise involved, from a revenue point of view, is still today the most successful financial storyline merchandise effort that has ever been made in professional wrestling in Japan. That's pretty, kind of a big deal,
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. Yep.
Fun stuff. But anyway, so, look, I look back at this stuff and, smile at the stuff that makes you smile and forget about the stuff that pisses me off and, just look forward to doing something new tomorrow.
Well, we would definitely would love to see Eric Bischoff inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame at some point, either on your own or, if they're going to do something recognizing WCW, I have no idea. But, my personal opinion, and, call me biased or whatever, I stopped watching WWE or WWF back then when Savage left. Once Randy Savage left, I was done with WWF. When he turned up in WCW, I started watching WCW. I didn't always get the WCW broadcast in New York until, I guess it kind of until like Hogan got there, and all the guys kind of like went from WWF to WCW, and I started watching WCW product, and I didn't watch WWF at all. And once WCW was gone, I didn't watch wrestling until about 2012. And I stopped completely watching it for over a decade. I started watching it once I started the radio show, and then I started doing the promotions business, and I was kind of watching it for educational purposes to get to know, people I might be working with in the future, or people I did work with that are now on TV. So I get to see them, from signing at a table as a young kid to now wrestling on TV for WWE or Impact or AEW or NWA, whatever it is, kind of like a proud daddy moment. And, but now I don't watch it again. I'll watch on YouTube, no commercials, no promos, no nothing. It's just like, boom, boom, boom. It's over in 22 minutes. I watch, 3 hours of Raw in 22 minutes on YouTube, because I can't sit through it no more, because I liked the wrestling aspect of wrestling. Go figure. I liked wrestling because it was wrestling. The wrestling told the story. You didn't really even need... You could have a guy who couldn't speak on the microphone, but his in-ring ability told the story. And I don't watch it no more because there's just more storytelling than actual acting out the story. So I just can't watch it no more. So, again, and then hope, it's going to happen. I just don't know when. That time calls and your phone rings and they say, "Hey, Eric, we want to put you into the Hall of Fame." I'll be, I'll be that first text message, congratulating you, and way overdue. It should have happened years ago. Blah 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 blah. And I'm sure everybody and their mother is going to be calling you for bookings. So don't forget Kevin.
Well, that won't happen, but I think the odds of that happening are slim, number one. I think the odds of me getting inducted posthumously and being inducted into the Hall of Fame by one of Hunter and Stephanie's kids is probably more likely than it happening anytime in the near future. But I appreciate the sentiments.
I think the coolest thing ever that could happen is if you were inducted and Vince McMahon actually was the one that did your induction. To me, that would be perfect ending to an awesome, long wrestling career. On camera and off camera. Just a final acknowledgement that everybody, I can speak for everybody that that I've ever dealt with, that have absolutely appreciated everything that you've done in wrestling. Who knows what we would even be watching if we were watching anything at all if it wasn't for the Monday Night Wars. Alundra Blaze dumping that belt in the garbage pail kind of opened up to a whole new world of professional wrestling, and the Monday Night Wars were off and running. And who knows? I mean, you guys could have been the company we'd be watching right now instead of WWE, or we might not be watching anything. You know, we might be just watching independent wrestling. Who knows?
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I've thought about that. And it was interesting, you know, I did an interview with JBL. I think it was called Legends of JBL. It was one of the first shows on the network that JBL did a couple of years ago. And, you know, I'm tight with JBL, so when he called me and asked me, I didn't ask any questions. I didn't know what we were going to talk about. Didn't care. I knew it would be good and fun, and like I say, he's a buddy. So I just showed up, and we didn't rehearse anything. You know, typically the way I like to do things, we just got into it. And he opened up the segment that he did, or the show that he did on the network at the time, literally by setting me up similar to the way you just did, and by saying, you know, on the WWE network, had it not been for the NWO, there would have never been an Attitude Era.
Right.
There would have never been, you know, Mr. McMahon. There would have never, and he made a list of all the things that would have never happened with WWE hadn't the Monday Night Wars not happened. And for me, from a business perspective, if I step back from that, go, okay, if you believe that premise, at least to think about, had there not been the Monday Night Wars and the success that both companies had in growing the audience from 2 million people a week on Monday night, maybe on the USA Network, to 10 million people a week, that is split between, you know, TNT and USA. When the business world saw that, when the entertainment world saw that, when other television networks saw that, they realized the potential that wrestling had. They had never before realized that, because to grow the audience from maybe 2 million people a week to 8 or 10 million people a week, whatever it was at its peak, was unheard of.
Right.
And that success gave WWE the ability to take their company public. Had WWE not been taken public, I don't think they would have been able to withstand the pressure that the Monday Night Wars put on them.
Right.
They would have succumbed to it. But going public was the game changer for WWE. They're now, you know, depending on the stock price, you know, before COVID, they were a $5 billion market cap company because they were publicly held. That was the game changer for them. And that would not have happened had it not been for the Monday Night Wars. And that, to your point, is, well, that wouldn't have happened. Would they even exist today?
Right.
And I think the answer is probably, possibly not.
Yep. And that would, it's a weird thing to think of life, everyday life, without hearing or knowing that WWE is around. Even if you're not a wrestling fan, you know what WWE is. You know, people who haven't watched an ounce of wrestling in their life know who Vince McMahon is. So can you imagine just, you know, being 2020 and not even remotely hearing WWE's name or Vince McMahon's name ever mentioned? It would be so weird.
It definitely would.
Yeah.
So, listen, Kevin, I'm going to have to. My phone is actually. I need to buy a new phone. Battery discharges at.
No, we were gonna wrap this up anyway. So, and I was just gonna, you know, tell you that continue to stay safe and well, you and the family, and we'll definitely be in touch with you as things unfold for the rest of this year. So hopefully we can do something. If not, you know, we'll definitely be talking to you about something. And we appreciate you coming on and sharing some stories and you know, just having a nice conversation with us.
All right, buddy. I really appreciate it. That's your beautiful wife. You guys take care, stay healthy, and I'm sure we're going to cross paths sooner than later.
Absolutely. Eric, again, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Take care. That was Eric Bischoff, ladies and gentlemen. I love talking to Eric. Like, I just feel like, you know, we could have talked for hours and probably forgot we were recording this. I mean, he's just such a great guy to talk to, and you know, I don't know. I just can't say enough good things about Eric Bischoff. He's just a great guy, He's a good businessman. He's extremely smart, not just about wrestling, and just overall knowledge of, anything that you want to talk about. He won't talk about it unless he's got knowledge about it. So he's not your typical person that knows that that says they know everything. But just a great guy to talk to, and I hope everybody enjoyed this interview with Eric Bischoff. And yes, we'll be bringing him out somewhere soon, so you'll get to meet and greet him in person. So as always, we ask that you help control the nitwit population and have your friends spayed or neutered. On behalf of all my sponsors and Eric Bischoff, we thank you very much for tuning in to the Indie Super Show here on the Damage 365 Radio Network. Take care, folks.
Accept the Lord of Darkness as your Savior. Allow the purity of evil to guide you